The war between Ukraine and Russia has increasingly moved beyond the trenches and frontline artillery duels that once defined it. What began as a grinding land conflict has evolved into a long-range contest of drones, missiles, and strategic reach. In recent months, that evolution has brought explosions, fires, and air raid sirens to key Russian cities and industrial regions far from the battlefield. This is the story of how the geography of the war is changing. For much of the conflict, Russian regions hundreds of miles from Ukraine functioned as logistical backbones, producing fuel, refining oil, manufacturing chemicals, and assembling military components. These areas were not frontline zones. They were supply hubs, places where trains loaded with fuel rolled east and south, where factories operated around the clock, and where energy terminals supported exports that financed the war effort. But long-range drone technology has altered the equation. Instead of tanks crossing borders, small unmanned aircraft now travel deep into Russian territory, targeting infrastructure linked to military logistics and energy production. The strikes are not random. They are designed to disrupt fuel supplies, restrain industrial output, and force Russia to divert air defenses away from the front. One of the most strategically significant regions affected has been Russia's Krasnodar territory, near the Black Sea. This region hosts critical oil terminals and export facilities that handle refined petroleum products. Reports have described drone strikes targeting oil storage depots and terminal facilities connected to maritime transport routes. When fuel storage tanks ignite, the fires can burn for hours, sometimes days, sending towering plumes of black smoke into the sky. Emergency crews scramble to contain the flames, often deploying foam and heavy firefighting equipment to prevent spread to adjacent tanks. The importance of these sites go beyond local infrastructure. Energy exports through Black Sea terminals represent revenue streams and logistical arteries. Any disruption, even temporary, can ripple through supply chains, insurance rates, and shipping operations. Airspace closures and tightened port security often follow such incidents. Flights are rerouted, maritime traffic slows. The immediate physical damage may be limited to specific tanks or loading facilities, but the psychological and economic signal is far larger. Critical energy infrastructure is no longer beyond reach. Far to the northeast, in the Perm region, industrial complexes have also reportedly been struck. This region is home to major chemical plants that produce industrial compounds, including materials with applications in explosive and propellants. When drones target chemical production sites, the impact is measured not only in physical destruction, but also in production downtime. Even minor structural damage can halt operations due to safety inspections and containment risks. Authorities often report intercepted drones and limited structural damage. However, even attempted strikes require factories to suspend operations, activate emergency protocols, and conduct inspections before resuming output. In wartime, lost production hours translate into logistical strain. Perm lies deep within Russian territory, far from the border with Ukraine. The ability of drones to reach such distances signals a shift in strategic depth. Distance, once a shield, now offers less assurance. Perhaps one of the most striking examples of deep reach capability involves the Ukta oil refinery in the Komi Republic, roughly 1,000 miles from Ukrainian territory. This refinery processes crude oil into fuel products essential for transportation and military operations. The strikes on refineries are particularly consequential. Refining capacity determines the ability of diesel, aviation fuel, and other petroleum products. Even temporary shutdown can require rerouting supplies from other regions. When reports emerge of drone impacts near refinery infrastructure, markets react. Local authorities tighten perimeter security. Repairs begin almost immediately, often under heavy guard. Engineers assess the structural integrity, pipelines, and storage systems. For residents of Ukta, the sense of remoteness from the war was once a given, that perception had changed. Sirens, emergency alerts, and security checkpoints remind civilians that modern warfare can traverse vast distances. While deeper strikes draw attention, regions closer to Ukraine, such as Belgorod and Voronezh, have faced repeated attacks over the course of the conflict. Belgorod, located near the Ukrainian border, has frequently reported shelling and drone incidents. Residential buildings, administrative facilities, and infrastructure have sustained damage at various points in the war. Authorities have evacuated residents from certain districts during periods of intensified activity. Voronezh, further inland but still relatively close to the border, has also experienced drone interceptions and reported impacts on industrial areas. Air defenses in these areas are regularly activated, and airports occasionally suspend operations during heightened alerts. These border regions serve as staging and logistical hubs for military operations. Disruptions here can complicate troop movements and supply coordination. Although large-scale destruction in Moscow has not been widely confirmed in recent reporting, there have been instances in past phases of the conflict where drones reached the outskirts of the capital region. When that occurs, even minor impacts carry symbolic weight. Temporary airports closure, intercepted drones over suburban districts, and debris falling in populated areas create powerful imagery. The capital represents political authority and national identity. Any breach of its airspace resonates beyond physical damage. Security measures in and around Moscow have intensified over time, including reinforced air defense systems and expanded monitoring of aerial activity. The pattern strikes suggest a focus on infrastructure categories rather than purely urban residential areas. Key targets include oil refineries and storage depots affecting fuel supply chain, chemical plants potentially linked to industrial or military production, energy terminals and export hubs influencing revenue and trade, transportation nodes, rail yards, depots and support facilities. These are not random civilian landmarks, these are nodes in a broader logistical network. Modern warfare often targets supply chains rather than frontline troops alone. By disrupting production and distribution, one side seeks to impose cumulative strain. In any cross-border strike, civilian risk remains a concern. Russian authorities frequently report intercepted drones and limited casualties. Independent verification is often difficult due to restricted access and wartime information controls. Residents in affected cities describe sudden explosions at night, windows shaking from blast waves, and emergency vehicles rushing through industrial districts. Even when casualties are avoided, the psychological impact is real. Insurance premiums for facilities may rise. Workers face uncertainty about job continuity during repairs. Schools and offices sometimes close temporarily following incidents. Russia has responded by expanding air defense coverage around key cities and industrial centers. Systems are repositioned, radar coverage is strengthened, electronic warfare measures are deployed to disrupt drone navigation. But air defense is a resource allocation challenge. Protecting every facility across a vast territory is nearly impossible. Each additional layer of defense requires manpower, equipment, and coordination. Ukraine, for its part, frames these operations as necessary to counterbalance Russia's own long-range strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure. Throughout the conflict, Ukrainian cities have endured missiles and drone attacks targeting power grids, water systems, and residential areas. The dynamic has become reciprocal, infrastructure for infrastructure. And as each new strike unfolds, the map of vulnerability expands, not just geographically, but psychologically.